Guys, can remember Better Call Saul season 2, episode 6, Bali High, and I could not wait for this episode. This show in general, not just this season, but the show in general, I feel is just getting better. I mean, it's been getting more and more interesting. They've really been focusing more on the characters and things like that, which they did last season. This season has really been very character focused, and this was another amazing episode. I love the way this episode was done. There were even some very deep metaphors and things like that in this episode that I will get into, but let's just get into because it was an amazing episode, and there were some tough scenes here, definitely, especially some scenes with Mike. There were definitely some tough scenes in here, but I love the way this episode starts because it shows right away what Jimmy is going through. I mean, we've known what Jimmy is going through, but this is really the episode where we get to see, this entire episode I think is really about being unsatisfied and how even if you have everything, you're still unsatisfied. Like you don't have what you want. That's kind of what this episode's all about, and I think they showed that very well here. And the way this episode starts, it always the perfect way to show that. We see it's 1:08 in the morning, and Jimmy, for whatever reason, can't sleep. Just for whatever reason, he can't sleep, and it's understandable. I mean, he's not happy what he has. He has this dream job, but he doesn't like it. His girlfriend's not returning his phone calls, and after watching some TV, he's flipping through channels pretty much, which I like some of the stuff we see because it's very realistic what he sees. He sees like infomercials, and there's really nothing on TV, but then he sees that there's a Davis and Maine ad being played, running a commercial to straw Sandpiper clients in, but he had no say in this commercial. It's clear they run this commercial without him because that he didn't get to, because obviously he ran the last one against them, so they kind of did it as revenge. Am I saying it's right? No, but that's exactly what they did, and very interesting the way that whole thing started, and the fact that they just completely just got rid of his voice and everything. I mean, it's really crazy, but that's exactly what they did, and basically we see he then plays basketball, bowling, and soccer with weird straw balls in his corporate apartment, and he then suddenly has this idea because he's not happy. You can tell that he's just, for whatever, this is not making him happy. There are so many things he's not satisfied by. He decides to take his work clothes and drives all the way back to Albuquerque to his old home office in the back of Mrs. Nguyen's nail salon. And you can tell that this is really where he feels home because he doesn't feel safe at Davis Maine. Even though it should be a great job for him, he's fucked up and ruined so many things that he just doesn't feel like he belongs there, and he's really upset. And it's sad to see because he hasn't been fired, but he feels like he's fired. Like personally, he just feels like he's fired. Like he's irrelevant to them, and that they're just superior to him. Which in many ways, I can understand why they're not really including him in things because obviously, again, he needs to be kept very careful watch of because of course Cliff doesn't know if he's gonna do something else. So it makes sense why Cliff would run this, without Jimmy's consent, definitely, because that's exactly what he did to him. And again, it's not necessarily right, but that's what they're doing. So I find that very interesting. Once he puts the chairs up on his desk, he unfolds the sofa bed and flops into it, and he finally falls asleep. This is just where he feels home, and it's really weird that he's able to fall asleep here, but not even in his own apartment, because here, this is where he feels like things are back to the way they were. He's back at HHM, there's not a care in the world, and he just feels safer and more secure, and I think Jimmy's realizing that for him now, there really is no such thing as safe, even though he wants to be safe, there's no such thing, and I love the way they started. They really showed how unsatisfied he is very well here. So the next morning, Mrs. Nguyen's unhappy to find him there. He's all paid up. He reminds her and he asks him if he already lost his job, the fancy new job where they gave him a car just from working there, and he says that he should be so lucky, which I like that he says point blank that he should be so lucky, but he's not lucky. He just feels down on himself and he feels like he doesn't deserve this. And I feel like that's really what it is, that Jimmy personally feels he doesn't deserve this kind of job. Like, everyone else, they deserve it, but he's ruined so many things that he does not deserve it, and that's why he feels like he's been fired, and you can totally understand that. So, very interesting. I love the way that was done. And Miss Nguyen's reaction, I like that she was upset, but at the same time, she tried to counsel him and try to figure out what's going on, because there had to be a reason why he just randomly showed up there. He's not just going to randomly show up. There had to be a reason why, and I like that she tried to get, answers out of him. So Kim is just as unhappy in her apartment. She's not really doing very well either. And Jimmy's the main reason, obviously. She keeps looking at her answering machine as she gets ready for work. The machine shows she has 6 messages, and she ignores literally every single one of them. Every message she's ignoring, and when the phone rings, just as she's about to walk out of the door, she stops to listen, and finally she gets to listen to what it is because she hasn't been taking his calls, and it makes sense. Obviously, she doesn't really trust him right now, and she doesn't feel he's really going to do anything for her. I mean, we saw that Chuck, wanted to help her out, but she doesn't really think that, being with Jimmy is going to do her any favors, which it's really not. I mean, it's not really doing anything good for her. It's really ruining a lot of things, and she really just wants to stay out of it. But she does finally listen, and it's Jimmy, of course. He starts singing to her Bali High, which a very cute scene, honestly. You can tell how much he does love her, but even though he loves her, it's still, you can tell, it's not really like he loves her. He's kind of just trying to coax her back into it, and he says, basically, he says after his big number, "You're welcome. Tomorrow we begin our exploration of the Carpenter's catalog." And of course, he's going to open a request. That's right. All he has to do is call him anytime, call him in spite of herself and how mad she should still be at him for the TV commercial mess. And she smiles. She's happy because she knows that he still cares. And the fact that he actually called her, it shows that he's not just into his job. Like, he actually does care about her. And I think Kim knows that. But things are just too complicated for them right now. That's really what it is. Things are too complicated. But in many ways, they're in the same situation. Kim has a boss that's pissed at her. And she is not happy because of that. And obviously, it's because of Jimmy as well. But I feel like a big part of this is also the fact that, we know that Hamlin is pissed at her and wants nothing to do with her. And we do see, though, this episode, things start to look up for Kim. Like, she finally gets out of this depressing cycle that she was in last week. We finally see that, and I like seeing that here. So things seem to look up for her, but despite how hard she worked to get back in Hamlin's good graces, she doesn't seem especially happy. Again, just like Jimmy, she's not really happy here. She's not happy to be out of the HHM basement and back in her own office. And when Hamlin comes in to tell Kim that Paige and Kevin from the huge Mesa Bank deal Kim brought her into the firm are there for a meeting, because we know that Kim did this on her own, she still doesn't seem particularly happy, which I find that very interesting. And basically, he's surprised that she hasn't already unpacked her things, and on the walk to the conference room, she does take the time to make sure he knows she didn't ask Chuck to take him on her behalf, to which Hamlin doesn't respond, because he doesn't know if that's necessarily true. You can tell that while he does trust her, he still is going to be very shady. I mean, what she did, obviously, kind of, going against his trust, and he doesn't really know if she's telling the truth or not. What he does know is that Kim's very good at what he does, and he needs someone like her on his team. I think that's really the only reason why he brought her back. It was not because he felt pity for her. It had nothing to do with that. I think it's because of the fact that he just needs someone like her back because she helped him at Mesa Bank, and Chuck was able to convince him, and it's clear that Chuck was able to get back her position, which I didn't think Chuck could do much, but he did get it back from her, and I thought it was very good to see that. So then we find out why Hamlin expects such loyalty from Kim and why she seems so eager to please him, because there clearly is a reason going on there. We find out now, this was a very good reveal, and it also shows, I think, how similar Kim is to Jimmy, because we've seen Kim and Jimmy, and they are very dissimilar, but they're also very similar. And I think that's the reason why they're so good together, but also why they can't be together. And I think it all goes back to that first scene in episode 1 of season 2, where she's pretending to be another person, and she's conning, she's conning that couple into making them think they're this couple and everything, which obviously they're not. But, well, they are now, but, her name's obviously not Celeste. But when Kim was an employee in the HMM mailroom, the firm paid her way through law school. She's literally and actually indebted to Hamlin. And that's the only reason why she's there. They were the ones that paid her there. And in many ways, that's what's going on with Jimmy. Jimmy had all these favors. Jimmy did everything, didn't do anything for himself. They helped him with everything. And that's very much what's happening with Kim. And I like the way that they kind of showed us how similar these two really are. I definitely like seeing that. We see the opposing counsel in the Sandpiper case takes her out to a fancy lunch and offers her an even fancier job at his firm. And he's been impressed with her since her deft handling of the Kettleman case, something that Jimmy helped with. And of course, that again, that's something that Jimmy helped her with. And he tells her and he'd like her to come on board at Schweikart and Coakley. And I think this is the reason why Kim's not especially happy, because again, all these things that she's done, she hasn't done on her own. She needed Hamlin to get her through law school, and Jimmy helped her with the Kettleman case, and Chuck was the one that got her back her job. None of this she did on her own. The only thing she did on her own was Mesa Verde, and for her, that's not enough. She doesn't feel like she did enough here, and while she's kind of faking her happiness here, you can tell deep down she's really not happy. And basically, she says that she can use their considerable resources to really spread her rings. They take her off Sandpiper, so no ethical dilemmas for her. And they'll even pay off her law school debt to HMM, which Kim is really floored with. She's happy that she's gotten this offer of a dream position, that someone she respects has acknowledged her talents and hard work in HMM for 10 years. but she's still not quite as happy because again, she's not doing this on her own. This is all they found her, they were she was a recommendation, and she doesn't feel she really deserves it, which is very interesting. And I like the way that they're really showing that. And again, it really shows how similar Jimmy and Kim really are. But that scene I really did love because you see Kim, it seems like for a moment she's actually going to be happy and that she's actually getting something that she wants. And this is something that Kim wants. We know that. We know that Kim has wanted this position. We know that Kim has wanted to do something like this, but for whatever reason, she's just not happy. And it's very interesting the way that's going. And I love the way they compared Jimmy and Kim in this episode. But let's just get into Mike real quick because there is some stuff we see with Mike. And there's a lot of very hard scenes to watch with Mike. They really went hardcore with these scenes in this episode. And some of them were one take with no sound whatsoever. And I really do impress them for that. I mean, the scenes with Mike always feel fundamentally different from Jimmy's, but also very similar because Mike is in the very same position as Jimmy's. Not exactly the same position, but he's made some mistakes. He's made some mistakes that he shouldn't have made, and now he's gotten himself caught up into something that he doesn't want to be caught up in, and even though his face is healed and that he feels comfortable visiting Kaylee, we see that now he can visit Kaylee and Stacy because his face is healed and everything. But that also brings up the potential for his worst nightmare, which is that Tio Salamanca sent his associate Arturo to get Mike's answer to Tio's request. And it's clear that Mike is trying to get away from this. He doesn't want to give him an answer because he's terrified of giving him an answer. He doesn't want to be involved in this cartel. You guys remember that Mike didn't even essentially want to do this. The only reason he did this was to get money for Kaylee and Stacy. That's really the reason why he did this. And now that he doesn't have to do that, now he's kind of trying to get himself out of it because he doesn't want to really do this professionally. This is not something that he wants to do personally. And of course, we know that Mike used to be a cop, so I think that's the other thing that scares him, that he's going to be what he fears most and who he had to take down. And Tio sends associate Arturo to get Mike's answer to Tio's request. Then Mike takes the hit for Tuco's gun charge. Arturo's waiting for Mike's front steps when Mike gets home, and you can see they are determined to get an answer. They're going to do whatever they can. They're not going to stop. I mean, they're literally watching him. In this episode, he tells them he must respectfully say no to Tio. Mike knows that that won't be the end of it, that he's not going to take no for an answer, and he even concludes a DIY security system by putting carbon paper and printer paper under a mat on his front porch so any footprints at the door will be captured by the carbon. He is terrified of these people visiting his home. He doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't know what's going on, and he doesn't really know what's going to happen, and that's what terrifies him. He doesn't want to have to be in their situation. He knows what's going on there, and he doesn't want to have to do that. And it's sad because we know eventually Mike is going to get involved with that when Breaking Bad rolls around and what have you, but right now, he kind of just wants to lay low. He wants to be this family, and that's really all it is. Mike's always been a family man, and he doesn't want to have to do these terrible things. He doesn't want to have to do that, and that's how he knows Arturo and another goon are waiting inside his house to attack him one night. He impressively takes down the two men, less than half his age, which is crazy that he was able to do that, but I think it's because of the fear that he has in him. He has this fear and this rage, and he's truly shocked, though, and more terrified than we ever seen him, which I think he really portrayed perfectly. And something I think that is just, so good. Jonathan Banks does such a great job with his character. We don't need dialogue for Mike. I mean, Mike does have dialogue, definitely. He talks, things like that. But we don't need to have dialogue with this character for us to feel emotion or pity for him or anything like that. Like, we know what Mike is going through in every scene. And something I loved about this is that scene where he's installing the security system and, tracking who's on his steps. It's a terrifying scene. I mean, it really is. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what they're capable of, and it's crazy. It really is. You don't really know what's going to happen there. So Tio literally sends two guys who are again from Breaking Bad, Lionel, and Marco, who are the twins from Breaking Bad. Which again, I didn't have much of a reaction because again, I didn't see their characters before. So if you guys want more of a reaction, I haven't seen Breaking Bad. You guys know that, which I don't feel like has really ruined the show for me. It's of course there have been some things where it hasn't really done me any favors, but it hasn't really ruined the show for me because I really think the show stands out on its own. I think they did a very good job with that. But then we get by far the toughest scene to watch in this episode. And what I love about this is that there's no violence in this scene. There's nothing that bad in this scene. It's just knowing what could happen in this scene is terrifying. Kaylee's in the pool of the hotel where Mike is paying for his granddaughter and Stacy to live, and it's a cute scene at first because you see that Mike, he's bonding with Kaylee, and he hasn't really gotten to do this a lot. Kaylee hasn't seen much of Mike, and now he's getting to bond with her, and it's a cute scene. You really do get to see that. But then we realize the twins make sure that Mike sees them watching Kaylee. One of them literally forms a gun with his fingers and basically says, if you're not going to join our gang, we're going to kill Kaylee. Right then and there, we're going to kill your family, and that is the thing that scares Mike most. And Mike realizes that he has to meet with Tio because they're gonna kill his family if he doesn't do that. And obviously, I knew there'd be lethal consequence. Like I knew if Mike didn't say what he'd do, there would be lethal consequence. But this is just insane. The fact that they're willing to kill his granddaughter and his daughter just because he's not going to join the gang business is insane. What he wants to do, but he basically realizes he has no choice. So he does meet Tio at an ice cream shop after closing time. The twins and Arturo are there too, as is Nacho. It pats Mike down when he comes in, and Tio doesn't care that Mike has a gun, though he only cares that Mike isn't wearing a wire, because he obviously doesn't want him to think that, he's, suspicious. He doesn't want anyone to get suspicious. And Mike then sits down at Tio's table. He tells him it's no longer a request, that he will go the next day, tell the DA that the gun Tuco had was his, and he has no choice. He needs to do this, but Mike says that he won't. Tio says he will, or Lionel and Marco will visit Kaylee and Stacy, and they'll kill them. That's just what's going to happen. So what I liked about this is that before Tio seemed like he was being like this friend and like this person that really was watching out for Mike, and now you see how protective he really is and what he really wants done. I mean, you can tell this is really what he wants, and he's gonna make sure it gets done. So Mike then wants to discuss his payment. Then Tio says his payment is getting to live, not enough. Mike replies he wants $50,000, and yes, he's willing to die for it. He doesn't care how he gets it. If he has to die, whatever, he wants it. And you can tell he wants to, he's not going to use it on himself. He's going to give it to Kaylee and Stacy. And basically Mike tells Tio that he needs the money more than he does, who's amused that Mike has giant balls, and Mike also has 50K hand delivered by Nacho later that night, and he promptly gives Nacho the cash, telling him it's only fair because he didn't make his Tuco problem go away for as long as he had promised. And Nacho points out that the obvious to him, if Tio ever finds out that the two of them set up Tuco, he's gonna kill them both. Because if you remember, the plan was for Mike to kill Tuco. He didn't do that. And now Tio, knowing, already that these two wanted to hurt Tuco and what he could do and things like that. And even though Tio seems like he does know that Tuco has this problem, he is willing to fight dirty, and he is willing to stand up for his grandson, obviously. So really crazy stuff there. Love the way that's playing out. Definitely very crazy in this episode. So Kim's sitting in her HHM office, staring up at an empty banker's box. That symbol of moving in or out of an office, or maybe for Kim, it's more of a symbol of how easily she can slip out of favor with Hamlin and how long he'll make her pay for such an offense. Because she's realizing she's not going to be here for much longer. If she takes this job, she's going to have a new job, and basically, we see she's ready to grab lunch. Hamlin has an assistant bring her a stack of sandpaper documents he wants her to complete in an hour. Instead, she walks out of the office, ends up at Fork, basically realizing that she doesn't need to be here anymore. This is not her job. She now has this new job offer, and she's kind of above them. And the restaurant and bar where we see Rich Schweikart try to woo her to his law firm. She's drinking a special drink too at the bar at lunchtime. She takes out Rich's business card and her cell phone, and before she makes the call, though, she sees something more interesting. A guy is kissing his wife goodbye outside the restaurant only 1 minute, and the next he's hitting on Kim with a drink and some painfully very bad pickup lines, and she knows they're bad, and she doesn't want to make it seem like she knew that this guy had a wife. She's playing it off, and then makes a call to Jimmy. She wants to know how quickly he can meet her at Fork, and she, as her scamming alter ego Giselle, has convinced Dale, the pickup artist, that she and her brother Victor are on the verge of riches with a startup company that revolves around internet dating, and I love that this has come back. I love the way this is done, and it's the way that you get these two back together. It really is. You see that these two, yeah, they're con artists, and they're gonna be con artists. They don't care they're con artists, but obviously they're gonna try to figure out what's going on. And Dale says that he's living one off the hook, and Kim tells Jimmy, who's only too eager to ditch a day of tedious paperwork with Aaron breathing down his neck, to goof off on some blowhard tool with Kim. And in many ways, this is a good thing for them, because they're both getting out of something that they don't particularly like. Jimmy's getting out of this job that really isn't, he's kind kind of fired from and he doesn't really feel like he's a part of. And Kim is getting out of her job, which she also doesn't feel like she's a part of because she now has a new offer, while Jimmy doesn't feel like he deserves it. And I feel like Kim kind of feels the same way. So very interesting the way that's done. Definitely really enjoyed that. And then we get to the next morning. Jimmy's getting dressed for work. Kim looks at a check made out to Ice Station Zebra Associates for $10,000 for an investment from Dale Gibson. And Jimmy tells her he may know someone who can help her cash it. Of course, he does, but she says it's better as a souvenir, puts it on her mirror. Jimmy says he thought she'd be a bit happier that morning. The gift was all her idea after all, and she tells him about her job offer. He thinks it's great, and she says it is, especially since she thinks her prospects of promotion to HHM are dead. And again, she doesn't seem happy because she didn't do this on her own. She had to have favors, and she had to have people do this for her. And she tells him that she just keeps thinking about him flowing in that pool. He knew what he wanted, but she got in the way. And this was interesting, the fact that she's upset about that. Remember, Jimmy was kind of just, he wasn't really going to do much. He was just going to hang around. He wasn't going to go to work or anything. He was kind of going to live off the grid. That's what he was going to do and not be who he actually is. Kim was the one that pulled him out of this, and now she feels it's her fault that he's in the position that he is. That this wasn't her decision to put him back to this. And basically, she thinks that he took the job at Davis and Maine because of her, and in many ways, I think he did. But he tells her that's not true, that he took the job because it was the right decision. He has a steady paycheck, a car that's all one color, and a place to live that's more than 5 square feet. Never mind that he still prefers to sleep in the old place, of course. It's a good place, and he got what he wanted. He tells her with the Skywalker position, she could have everything that she wants. And, he asks her what's not to love about that, and she unconvincingly says what's not to love. And again, I don't think it's that she doesn't like the job. I think it's that she just feels she doesn't deserve it, which is really sad, honestly. So as they kiss goodbye, they each get in their cars to go to work. Jimmy tries to put up his cup, his gift from Kim, in his car's cup holder again. This time, it's too much, and he may have everything he wants except this, so he gets a tool out of his car, pries a cup holder loose until his world's second best lawyer mug will fit into the space. You can kind of tell this is kind of his thing that keeps him going, that Kim really is something that keeps him going and he needs her in his life. But I think it's also trying to show that with many things, Jimmy just doesn't feel satisfied. Neither of them do. Neither of them feel like they're necessarily happy. Jimmy feels that, she feels that this was her fault. And Jimmy, I think deep down, doesn't really want to be there, but he doesn't have the heart to tell her that, yeah, it was kind of her that made him go there. It really was all her, and that's why he's there, but he doesn't have the heart to tell her that, obviously. So overall, guys, amazing episode. Obviously amazing episode. The season in general has been amazing, but I really love the contrast, like I said, between Kim and Jimmy. I mean, like I said, they're very similar, and I like the way they're handling that, definitely. But that last scene, like, I really think what they're trying to show with that last scene is not just about, Jimmy trying to make a cup holder fit. I don't think that's really what it's about. I think it's about them fitting themselves. Like, they don't really feel like they fit here, but they're going to do everything they can to make themselves fit, and that's kind of what it's about. That, Kim kind of isn't fitting in HHM, but she's going to somewhere she does fit, and she's not really happy about it. And just like World's Second Best Lawyer, it fits into the space that it's in, but it's not really working. Just like that cup, basically, which I think is very interesting. That's kind of what I think they were trying to show. I don't really know. It's a very metaphorical ending, which I really do appreciate the show for doing, because that's something the show does very well, is provide very deep hidden metaphors, things like that. Maybe there was something more else to it, but if you guys got some more out of it, just let me know, because I feel like I'm completely wrong, but we'll have to see. Is Kim going to take this position? Because it seems like she wants to take this position at Schweikart, and I think completely bailing on the paperwork, I think, solidified that she is going to take this position, and she really doesn't have a choice. And I think that's the thing that Kim's most upset about. It's not the fact that she's taking this position, it's the fact that she feels she doesn't have a choice. Like, she has to do this, and that she pulled Jimmy into it, and she doesn't feel she deserves it because of it, which is very interesting. I like the way that's being handled. But Jimmy himself also doesn't feel like he deserves it, and he's much happier where things used to be. And you can tell that Jimmy wants to live this carefree life where there's not much to worry about, which makes sense why he eventually turns into Saul Goodman, because there won't be as much for him to worry about. So, very interesting. I like the way they're handling that, and definitely really good stuff between Jimmy and Kim. I never realized how similar these two really are, because honestly, they are very similar, and I think they're showing that really well here. Let's get to Mike, because Mike really is in this tough dilemma, because he doesn't want to be involved with what Tio's doing, but he's also realizing that if he doesn't get involved, his family's going to die, and he obviously doesn't want them to die, so he really needs to figure out what he's going to do there. I can't wait to see what happens with Mike and Tio, if they'll be able to get have the situation, and the fact that Tio could find out what Nacho and Mike did. I mean, obviously, we know that Mike's not going to die. Nacho is fair bet, though. Nacho could die at any moment. We never saw him in Breaking Bad, and Nacho could get killed off. And I honestly do think Nacho might get killed off, knowing if Tio definitely finds out what happens. I mean, Nacho was essentially the one that told Mike to do this. Remember, he said, there's a guy, I want him to go away. I'll give you money if he goes away, and that's where that all started. So it really was Nacho's problem, and that's the reason why this all happened. But in many ways, it was Mike's fault as well, because he did whatever he could to get his family money. And that's a big part of, it seems, what the show's about, that a lot of them are upset because they're not doing anything on their own, and they're not really getting, and they're getting all these favors. Like, Mike didn't get the money on his own. He got it because Nacho told him to do this thing, and then he'll get money, and that's really what he had to do. That he didn't fulfill what he wanted to do. I think that's another big part of why Mike's upset. But I think he also is obviously terrified knowing that Tio could come after him. And it's not just that Tio's a gangster and everything, it's what Tio can do. I mean, he can use so many things against him, knowing that his family could just die, and everything he's been fighting for, everything in the show that Mike has been doing, literally every decision has been for that family, and knowing they could die at any moment. I mean, obviously he's terrified, but I really think they handled that very well. I love the way that was handled. Amazing stuff with Mike in this episode, as usual. Just all season there's been amazing stuff with Mike. Definitely really been loving it. But overall, guys, amazing episode. Loving the season overall. You guys know that. Let me know if you guys saw this episode. Amazing stuff, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Daredevil, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.